Joy of Stick.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Joy of Stick. Stickhead here with your Atari ST gaming channel, and it's time for instalment number 2 in the top 50 Atari ST games as voted for by you. Now, if you're stumbling across this video, you might want to check out the first video in the series that covers games 50 to 46. If that's you, then there's a link for you in the description below. If not, get ready for the second instalment that shows you games 46 to 41.
Number 45.
The original Lotus Esprit Turbo Challenge was highly acclaimed for its smooth gameplay and sense of speed, and this sequel sprinkles a little extra seasoning onto this race-winning recipe. Not least amongst these is the ability to play a single-player game using the full screen. That might not sound like much, but racing using only half of the screen was one of the biggest complaints about the original. But now look at how much sky you can see. Much better. You can also now choose between two Lotus cars, the classic Esprit from the original game and a new convertible Elan. What do you mean they look the same, except one's got no roof? Shush. Another nice addition are the new hazards and weather conditions that do genuinely keep things fresh for this sequel, and it's genuinely atmospheric, no pun intended, to race during one of the thunderstorms or the blizzards. Oh, and you can link two STs together for some 4-player action if you are a sociable sort. Other changes less sought after by some include the loss of a fuel gauge, and with it the need to enter the pits to refuel. I always liked the tactical element that added to the original, and the tension of leaving it as late as possible as the car beeps frantically at you, and then only pitting in for the briefest time possible, risking running out of fuel to save precious tenths of a second. But the biggest loss, in my opinion, is how the races in this game are no longer just a simple race against opponents on a circuit, magnetic fields having instead opted to pit you against a stringent time limit. Because we all need more stress in our lives, right? I'll stop moaning now, because the most important thing is that the thrilling sense of speed is still there, and all the additions do outweigh the things they took away, and the result is without a doubt one of the best racing games on the ST.
Number 44.
Originally released for 8-bit machines in 1987 as Project Stealth Fighter, it was later ported to DOS in 1988, and then the ST and Amiga later in 1990. The F19 is itself a fictional aircraft based on a model kit released in 1986. Later in 1988, the US would unveil the real stealth fighter, the F19 Nighthawk, which Microprose would later include as an extra, an optional plane to fly in this Atari ST game. Now, in this game, you pilot the F19 or the F117 on various missions in the Middle East and Central Europe, and it was praised for its realistic AI responses and emulation of radar detection. A nice touch is the different scales of conflict that each zone can have, ranging from Cold War, where stealth is of the utmost priority for intelligence gathering, but also international diplomacy, to the full-scale open warfare, where you've got to take down enemy targets and planes and the like. The presentation is nice, as is the norm with Microprose flight sims, with well-drawn skeuomorphic visuals accompanying the pre-flight preparation scenes. The in-flight graphics are functional, but basic, but that means they move along pretty smoothly. In fact, in their review, Atari ST user said, F19 Stealth Fighter is stunningly fast, and the ground detail scenery is so detailed it's breathtaking. A classic to add to the collection of quality games from Microprose.
Number 43.
One of the reasons I, and many like me, were so enamoured by the onset of 16-bit computing was because the games were a step closer to their arcade counterparts. Full colour graphics? Yes please. Samples and speech? Oh, go on then. Now, I know that Bobble wasn't exactly pushing the hardware to the limits, but the upgrade from 8 to 16-bit was tangible and obvious. No longer did I have to tolerate the approximation that was the Amstrad CPC 464 port. No, I had a version at home that to all intents and purposes was arcade perfect. Taito's Classic Arcade features the brilliant gameplay beats of jumping, collecting, trapping and popping enemies, which, to be honest, if that was all this game had to offer, it would still make Bobble one of the best platformers available on the ST. But no, there's more. There are a myriad different hidden details waiting to surprise players. Hard to reach areas become accessible to those who can jump on their own bubbles, and learning the huge variety of pickups and what they do is a treat. At first, power-up appearances seem random, but actually everything that happens in this game is controlled by what the players are doing or what they did on the previous screen. Genius. Bobble has the rare honour of being the only game I've completed and then wanted to play again straight away. My best friend and I would play this game religiously. We played it so much that we knew exactly where each of us should stand for each level and exactly who was responsible for which group of enemies, so we could rinse each level as quickly as possible, minimising the risk to our lives bank and maximising the possibility of juicy power-ups on the next level. And then once we'd defeated the game's impressive final boss, we'd go through the game again to try and find even more secrets.
Number 42.
Sensible Software would go on to dizzy heights with huge hits later in their history, but here we have one of their earliest, and boy, it's a strange one. You control a wizard who's determined to bring the colour back into the world stolen by the spectrum-hating Zark by transforming himself into a ball and taking his robot piloting cat along with him. It's a laudable goal, if somewhat questionable methodology. There's a nice power-up system that sees you collecting bubbles dropped by vanquished enemies and cashing them in for upgrades in a very Gradius manner. Many of these upgrades are essential for you to be able to accomplish your task. The first two of these are power-ups that stop you from bouncing about like a fart in a colander, so you can actually dispatch enemies a little easier, and another calls into play your trusty feline friend who's needed to collect the droplets of colour that will eventually revitalise this drab, grey, lifeless world. It's a strange one, this one, and it's challenging, but it is compelling. Thanks to its unique nature and tight design, you will keep wanting to return until you've started to make some real progress in this unique game.
Number 41.
The wonderful. Into the wonderful. Into the wonderful. Into the wonderful.
Gods is one of those releases that rightfully earned the Bitmap brothers the reputation for creating stunning looking games. See the Chaos engine from earlier in this list. Gods is gorgeous. The stone textures, the metallic sheen, every sinew of the hero, the gruesome enemies, the flashy effects and colourful sunset, all rendered in incredible detail. Tighten your togas, strap on those sandals, because 4 particularly nasty pieces of work have invaded the citadel of the gods, and you, playing as Hercules, must vanquish these nefarious ne'er-do-wells. Here's a Brucey bonus though: the gods will bestow upon the victor one favour. Being but a half-god, Hercules quite fancies having the full kit and caboodle, so chooses immortality as his favour, much to the gods' chagrin. Unfortunately, this task is not going to be easy. The game is fiendishly difficult, which wouldn't normally be a problem, but your so-called demigod of an avatar is so unwieldy, so clunky to control at times, that it can lead to some frustrating moments. In his defence, this lack of agility is at least completely predictable, so when you take the time to adapt to his sluggish nature, you can minimise this frustration and begin to make good progress. As a side note, this game also has one of the best shops ever seen in a video game. Selfridges has got nothing on this cornucopia of commercial delights. Those bitmaps really know how to design a 16-bit shop, don't they?